We've talked to people about how to reverse decades of decline in the St. Louis area. One example people have pointed to frequently is Detroit. Detroit has faced many of the same issues that St. Louis has, with population decline, with declining industry, but the Motor City seems to be moving forward on its own. So we reached out to the Detroit Regional Chamber to find out what's happening in Detroit to move it forward.
The Detroit story is really remarkable. I'll be honest, I've been blown away by the progress that this city has made. The elixir has really been, first and foremost, driven by the private sector. It is always a fallacy to say that government creates jobs.
Take us through some of those private investments that have happened downtown. What have you seen in the last 10, 20 years?
You can't talk about the revival of Detroit, particularly downtown Detroit, without talking about Dan Gilbert. Dan Gilbert is the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, some other professional sports teams, owns Bedrock and Rocket Mortgage. He really came in not 10 years ago, but almost 15 years ago now, and decided that, Detroit was underinvested in, and Detroit, frankly, was on sale. He said skyscrapers were on sale in Detroit. He was going to buy them, renovate them, and frankly, create his own market. So when you walk around downtown Detroit, it's really fabulous, but he's curated that.
Do you feel like private investment has happened organically in Detroit, or has there been government attempts to try to encourage private investment?
It's definitely an but the important thing is a lot of people attribute Detroit's revival to the municipal bankruptcy that occurred in 2013. And there is some truth to that, but it's far, far, far from the whole story. What Dan and other business leaders understood really recognized that the future of talent was drawn to urban centers. That it was not in the suburbs, it was the urban centers, and you build out from your central business district, not try to build in from the suburbs. Building in from the suburbs is frankly an economic development strategy that has never really worked.
Has Detroit seen the same kinds of issues that other cities have with remote work and the effects on office space downtown? Has that hurt the office environment?
Just like every other place, we're kind of in the middle when it comes to percentage of people who are back in the office. Downtown Detroit has really become a magnet for restaurants and bar activity, certainly sports. All of our sports teams are located in downtown Detroit. And it really is a vibrant scene in the evening.
What do you think it takes to create those kinds of connections without public investment?
Public investment and public support is absolutely necessary. It is a hygiene factor, for the lack of a better phrase. So you need the public sector at the state level, the county level, and at the city level to be supportive with the right policies. Certainly when you think about like brownfields redevelopment, incentives. But at the end of the day, it really takes the private sector. Government does not create jobs. Governments can create the condition in which jobs are created, and that's it.
How do you engage the private sector in a way that they're willing to invest?
In Detroit's case, to be perfectly honest, it was a handful of business leaders that took it upon themselves even before government was ready. And I think that is a central theme to what has driven Detroit's resurgence over the last decade plus.
What kinds of work is left to do?
The amount of work left in Detroit is quite substantial. I don't want to give the impression that despite the success that the city has seen, that we're anywhere near being done. Most importantly, there are certainly swaths of the city that frankly haven't benefited yet from the resurgence in the central business district and some of the more affluent neighborhoods in the city. That's absolutely a true statement.
How can continued private investment, how can the business community continue to move Detroit forward through further investments, whether it's in the central corridor or in the greater Detroit area?
So what we're seeing now is exactly how economic development is supposed to work. So number one, you've got the central business district doing quite well with significant investment.
What do you think the lesson is for other cities?
Each city has its own patina, its own history, its own set of assets, and its own set of liabilities. We're happy to share the Detroit story, but we don't pretend that what has happened in Detroit is replicable everywhere. I mean, one of the things, one, we have next to San Francisco, we have the second greatest philanthropic community in the country. That is an asset. We have, again, 13 Fortune 500 companies that are still headquartered here. A lot of places have lost their Fortune 500 company headquarters to other parts of the globe. We still have a lot of ours here. We also went through a municipal bankruptcy, and that was both a positive and a negative. The ability to kind of hit the reset button that Detroit had isn't available in, frankly, many, if not most, other municipalities. I think the thing to be excited about Detroit is that I don't see any warning flags on the future, at least for the next several years. I mean, we're surviving tariffs. We're obviously more disproportionately negatively impacted by tariffs and trade policy. That has been a blow. The global automotive industry has taken a $15 billion hit. The businesses are starting to turn optimistic. For the last year, they were, they weren't quite sure. The fact that they feel good makes me feel good.